Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today I am here with a Dell. We haven't really had enough of these on the channel, so I'm really happy to bring this one to you. This is the Dell E7240 Latitude series laptop. Now, this laptop came out in the same time period as the ThinkPad X240, and in a lot of ways was the direct competitor, not only in terms of its size, but also in terms of its specifications and feature set as well as chipset. Let's dive right into how well this would have fared against its competitor, the X240. This series of laptop was introduced in the year 2014 with this and the 7440. It was a 12.5-inch ultra-portable Intel 4th generation CPU laptop that had a pretty wide variety of features and was actually a pretty competitive product, although a lot of people mentioned that it was quite expensive at that time. In fact, many reviews during that time period were quite critical of its cost, especially for the nicer spec'd machines. Now, because this machine was so widely used across the globe, it was incredibly difficult to find a definitive specification sheet of all the different configurations that this laptop series came with. So I will be covering what I know for sure. This particular unit came in essentially three flavors: the i3, the i5, and the i7 variants of the 4200, the 4300, or the 4600U chipset during that time period. It has 2 RAM slots, and the maximum that this could handle would be 16 gigabytes of DDR3 low power memory at 1600 megahertz. It would be running the Intel HD graphics series for this era, and there was rumors of an AMD Radeon 8690M as being optional equipment, but I haven't been able to definitively source that information. The regular display on this is a 1366 by 768. However, there were touch variants with Gorilla Glass at a 920 by 1080 display, and this is actually one of them. So this is kind of the nicest display that came with this model. And it's also worth pointing out that this is the i7 variant. So this is rocking the 4600U. And if you are looking for one of these on the market, I highly recommend that you do chase down these top tier features because it really will be worth it, especially in the year 2020. This particular model featured what Dell referred to as their tri-metal chassis, which passed military standard tests of 810G and was actually a pretty rugged design. The owner of this has put on this very tasteful looking carbon fiber skin, but there was also rugged snap-on covers that came with this as well. This is probably a good time to do a quick tour of the ports and features. Along the left-hand side, we have the CPU vent grill, and we have a Wi-Fi kill switch, which is kind of a rarity these days. Along the backhand side, we have the barrel plug for AC input, USB 3.0, we have HDMI out, another USB port which is super speed enabled. Your Ethernet jack is actually built into the back hinge, which is kind of nice because it gives you a thinner profile of machine without having to have one of those weird mechanical opening Ethernet ports. And along the right hand side we have a mini display port, as well as another USB port and your headphone microphone combo jack. And then on the corner here is actually the Kensington lock slot, which is kind of an odd location for it, but hey, it works. And then along the top here, we actually have a series of indicator lights. They can be viewed with the machine closed or with the machine open. Other things to note, we do have the power button here, and we do have a series of volume control keys, which are right by the left-hand hinge. And these keys are actually very, very close to that hinge to the point where you are going to bump the edge of your finger right up against that, and it's not exactly what I would call a comfortable user experience. The keyboard is backlit, which is an excellent feature, especially when you have all the other bells and whistles. I will note that the keyboard is a little spongy, but at the same time, I think that it would be an excellent keyboard to type thousands of words on a day. I think that that's actually pretty decent. And unlike the X240, we actually have dedicated click buttons and a trackpad with a very texturized finish to it. So with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and disassemble this, and it's incredibly easy to do just that. And then I'll walk you through the upgrades that you can do with it we'll put it back together and we'll turn it on. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is remove this battery here. Now, there are a series of different batteries that were available. There was a 3-cell and a 6-cell. Easily removed, you just pull the tab over to one side, the battery ejects, and we can turn it around to see that this is the 45 watt-hour battery, which is not too shabby at all. We'll go ahead and put that off to the side. Now, to do and service most of the parts, we simply just need to remove these 2 screws on either side of this flap, if you will. So we're going to go ahead and spin those out, and then you simply, one finger unlocks it by pushing it toward you, and then the tray can simply be lifted and removed, and we have access to essentially all of the upgradable and serviceable components. So a few things to point out is that this is a WWAN card slot. I believe it is M2, so it will fit all sorts of different peripherals there. You do have your Wi-Fi card, and that will be a variety of different things depending on the region. And here we have 2 sticks of 4 gigabytes of RAM each, but these can be swapped out for 2 sticks of 8 for a total of 16. Over here we do have our mSATA style drive, and that is important to distinction to make. This is mSATA, it is not M.2. So just be aware of that if you are looking to upgrade this component. Using a Samsung 850 or 860 Evo would be the way to go. So that's it for the main components. It's pretty well compact and put together in here. The only other thing that we can really do at this point is remove the keyboard deck. It is worth noting that underneath this little flap, which has adhesive at the top, contains all your ribbon cables for your trackpad, your keyboard, and other peripherals. So if you are removing the keyboard or any of those sorts of things, you will need to disconnect all of these cables. So since we are going to be doing the keyboard removal process, we are going to just move this up and make sure that when we do remove the keyboard that this ribbon is not being pulled on. The keyboard screws are easy to identify because they're marked with a K. So we find the ones that are marked with a K, and there are 2 of them. And the process for the palm rest is the same. You just need to remove all of the screws that are labeled P. Once those 2 are removed, we can go ahead and flip the machine back over. So the next step that we're going to have to do to get the keyboard out is to remove this keyboard trim along the top part of this case. And you'll need something pretty thin to get under there. So with the keyboard trim out of the way, there are only 3 more screws holding the keyboard in place. With those screws out of the way, the keyboard will start to lift. There are a few clips that are still holding it retained. And out it comes. So not exactly the easiest keyboard removal, but there are worse ones out there, particularly on its competitor, the X240. And then of course you can remove the trackpad and all of the other components pretty easily once you remove that front bezel. So let's go ahead and put everything back together and turn it on. Before flipping this back over, it is worth noting as well that it does have a port replicator that was an option for these. I've been able to find them on eBay for usually shipped less than 60 Canadian dollars, which is a pretty handy accessory for any sort of business grade laptop. Alright, let's go ahead and power this thing on. Alright, as you can see, it really does not disappoint, especially for its age. Like I mentioned before in the specifications overview, we do have a 1080p touch display, and it's quite nice. The bezels on this are certainly thicker than what we would see on most modern laptops, but at the price point that you're probably going to find these things at today, which is usually in the sub $400 range, that is perfectly acceptable. This is an incredibly well-built machine, very responsive, good specifications, nice keyboard, and I have to say that if I was choosing between this and an X240, that's actually a very difficult decision in my mind to make. Principally because this is very well built, it's easy to disassemble. The keyboard, while not the easiest thing to remove in the history of laptops, is still a far cry easier than the X240. So coupled all that together, even though it might not have some of the other features that we would see on the ThinkPad line, if you're looking for an era of machine like this, then the Dell Latitude E7240 is a fantastic choice, and it goes to show that Dell should be considered in your list of options when you're trying to find a used laptop. Like I said, though, I would really encourage you to go with the high specification models like the i7 and the ones that have the 1080p touch display. They might be rare, but they're definitely worth tracking down. At any rate, if you enjoy this sort of content and would like to see more, I'm going to encourage you to do the big four. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified the next time a Dell machine is featured on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.